The world is stunned, watching the unexpected turn of events in U.S. China relations. No sooner had a full-scale trade war broken out than one of its initiators appears ready to lay down arms. In China, there is jubilation, with hashtags mocking the surrender. Just a few days ago, the rhetoric was uncompromising. No deals, no concessions. Today, there are calls for kindness and mutual understanding. After the introduction of crushing 245% tariffs on Chinese goods, there is consideration of reducing them by more than half. At the same time, the Chinese side has made no concessions. In American agricultural circles, business communities, and even among major financial donors, bewilderment is growing, while Beijing seems unable to believe its luck. These events could be a harbinger of the largest undermining of America's economic reputation in modern history. And this is just the beginning, so it is worth carefully analyzing the situation. The unexpected pliability shown by the Trump administration in the trade confrontation with China has caused a storm of delight and ridicule in Chinese social networks. In a matter of hours, a viral hashtag spread across the internet, portraying Trump not as an experienced negotiator, but as someone who surrendered positions under pressure from Beijing. The scale of this phenomenon was striking. The hashtag garnered over 150 million views, becoming one of the fastest-growing political topics of the year. The main message, actively disseminated on platforms like WeChat and Douyin, was simple and ruthless. Trump was the first to show weakness. In Beijing, officials seemed to be enjoying what was happening. State media actively covered the viral publications, and commentators openly expressed joy that Xi Jinping had gained the upper hand over the American president. A keen observation about how today's Trump prevailed over yesterday's quickly became a viral meme in Chinese online communities. However, beyond the internet humor, a far less amusing picture of complete confusion was unfolding in Washington. The chaos was compounded by contradictory signals coming directly from the president's administration. Disagreements manifested not only in the virtual space, but also penetrated the political heart of America, exposing a deep rift in Trump's team. While the president assured journalists of the continuity and intensity of trade negotiations with China, his Treasury Secretary voiced completely opposite information. The secretary acknowledged that no meetings were planned in the near future, and the parties were in a waiting phase for real negotiations to begin. Such a stark contradiction raised legitimate questions from both allies and adversaries of the United States. Who actually determines the country's trade policy? The main question, like an insistent refrain, sounded louder and louder. If American leaders cannot agree even on the fact of negotiations, how do they expect to reach any agreements at all? Behind the scenes of the political stage, the situation appeared even more confusing and alarming than reflected in public statements. Several weeks ago, the political scene froze when Trump triumphantly announced the introduction of impressive 145% tariffs on Chinese goods. This move was supposed to be a demonstration of strength and determination, but the economic community reacted with alarm. Experts warned that such radical measures could backfire on the American economy itself, predicting a decrease in GDP of at least 1.5% within a year. But the political message was clear and unambiguous. Trump did not intend to concede. And then, like a bolt from the blue, there was an unexpected turnaround. Almost instantly, information leaked into the information space that the president was considering reducing tariffs by more than half, without any prior negotiations or reciprocal steps from China. This seemed incredible, but official confirmation soon followed. High-ranking officials reported that Trump was indeed considering a serious reversal of previously introduced tariffs, without requiring any concessions from Beijing in return. For a politician who built his reputation on the image of a tough and uncompromising negotiator, such a step looked like a complete and inexplicable mystery. Analysts and experts were at a loss, trying to find a logical explanation for what was happening. Some called it nothing less than negotiating against oneself, a gross mistake that even novice diplomats try to avoid. Others suggested that Trump, facing increasing internal pressure, was simply desperately seeking a quick victory, even at the cost of losing strategic leverage in relations with China. The matter was not limited to a simple reduction in tariffs. Striking changes also affected Donald Trump's communication style. The previous aggressive rhetoric, which portrayed China as almost the world's chief deceiver, has suddenly disappeared. It has been replaced by almost conciliatory statements. This shift was so abrupt and unexpected that political circles in Washington seriously wondered if there was any coherent strategy at all. And if so, who is privy to its details? Amidst this prevailing confusion, Beijing wasted no time in taking advantage of the situation. While the global community was trying to make sense of the unexpected turn in American policy, China acted without delay. State media and social networks were filled with stories portraying Trump as a weak and inconsistent leader. One viral video that swept the internet compared him to a weather vane, helplessly spinning in the wind. This blow was directed not only against Trump's reputation, but also against the prestige of America as a whole. As the influential Wall Street Journal reported, Trump's team was considering reducing tariffs without obtaining any tangible results, new commitments, a rollback of subsidies, protection of American technology, or serious trade reforms from China. It seemed that the United States was retreating from the principled positions it had so persistently defended over the past 2 years. America's allies watched with concern. In European capitals and Tokyo, diplomats hastily revised their strategies, wondering if even the U.S. could not resist Beijing's pressure. Why should others? At stake was not just a temporary setback, but a long-term change in the perception of American power in the world. When a country begins to concede, it only provokes new, even more serious challenges. Beijing understood this perfectly and was probably already anticipating new opportunities. Even within the Republican Party, where Trump enjoyed significant support, discontent was growing. Senators whose political careers were built on a tough line towards China, such as Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton, increasingly voiced their concerns. Hawley stated directly that concessions without getting anything in return would only encourage further aggression from China and other countries. In Beijing, there was jubilation, as if a new stage in the global rivalry was opening. The government of Xi Jinping was already facing increasing internal tensions caused by slowing economic growth and rising public discontent. However, Donald Trump's sudden departure from business opened up an unexpected window of opportunity for the Chinese authorities to reshape the global agenda. In Beijing's eyes, the country was not just experiencing a trade war, but confidently emerging victorious from it. Looking back now, it becomes clear that the viral hashtag that spread rapidly in Chinese social networks was not just a fleeting joke. It became a symbol of the amazing speed with which perceptions of power and influence are changing on the world stage. However, the greatest concern among allies and officials in the U.S. is another circumstance. The damage done will be extremely difficult to repair because trust, once undermined, is almost impossible to restore. In a world that is becoming more unpredictable every day, America can least afford to look like an unreliable partner. But it is not only the reputation of the United States abroad that is under attack. The economic chaos caused by what is happening is beginning to do serious damage to American business within the country. The patience of American entrepreneurs is running out, and angry voices are being heard more and more often. It is not surprising that the inconsistent actions of the Trump administration regarding tariffs have created an atmosphere of general uncertainty that no serious market participant can afford to ignore. In an economic system where planning, forecasting, and stability are fundamental elements, such a chaotic policy becomes not just an annoying obstacle, but a real threat to its normal functioning. The essence of the problem is not so much the expediency of the tariffs themselves as the destructive chaos they provoke. Businesses and investors need predictability, clear and understandable rules of the game that allow them to make informed decisions about building new production facilities, hiring staff, or launching innovative products. When the head of state introduces duties on Chinese goods and then hints at their early cancellation, he undermines the very foundations on which business activity is built. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, representing the interests of more than 3 million companies, has openly expressed its dissatisfaction with this policy, emphasizing that uncertainty is the main enemy of investment. In their report to clients, J.P. Morgan Chase and Company analysts noted that the Trump administration's incessant tariff threats increasingly resemble not a well-thought-out strategy, but an irresponsible improvisation that jeopardizes the stability of the global economy. Financial markets immediately responded to these events with a wave of anxiety. Each new tariff announcement turned stock exchanges into a roller coaster ride, instantly wiping out billions of dollars in capitalization. Goldman Sachs analysts even issued a warning that the escalation of the trade confrontation has noticeably increased the risk of recession in the U.S. economy. This is no longer just an abstract technical issue. When businesses are deprived of clear planning horizons, they seem to freeze in anticipation. Investment flows dry up, companies stop hiring new employees, and the launch of promising projects is postponed indefinitely. The confidence of investors and entrepreneurs collapses like a fragile house of cards. The National Federation of Independent Business has recorded a sharp decline in optimism among small businesses, directly linking this to concerns caused by the trade war. Nowhere is this tension felt as acutely as on Wall Street, where each new batch of tariff news causes real shockwaves in the markets. It may seem incredible, but there's no denying the obvious. Whenever there is a hint of easing tariff pressure on China, Wall Street breathes a sigh of relief. When President Trump posted on social media about a possible truce in the trade war, the Dow Jones Index soared by more than 500 points in just one day. Investor enthusiasm was overflowing, but this euphoria was not only due to market conditions. Behind this jubilation loomed an ominous neon sign, highlighting an unsightly truth. American business is entangled in Chinese networks so deeply that disentanglement seems almost impossible. This dependence permeates all the economic arteries of the country. Apple, a symbol of America's technological pride, stands on Chinese manufacturing shoulders. Their iPhones, MacBooks, and iPads are born in giant workshops, woven into a complex web of suppliers such as Foxconn. Just a spark of tension is enough to make the company's shares tremble in anticipation of a storm. Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, has repeatedly visited high offices in Washington, warning that moving these production chains to other countries is a task that takes years and may even be impossible. But Apple is just the tip of the iceberg. Nike sneakers, goods on Walmart shelves, General Motors cars, all are connected to China by invisible but strong threads. In 2023, the Chinese market accounted for more than 40% of GM's global sales, becoming a more significant platform for the company than America itself. Even Boeing looks to the east with hope. Analysts predict that China will become a key consumer of aviation equipment, accounting for up to 17% of the demand for new aircraft. In an era when the aviation industry, barely recovered from the devastating blow of the pandemic, cannot afford to make a mistake, a disturbing question arises. Can American business withstand it if China suddenly cuts off supplies? Vulnerability extends far beyond finished products. Rare earth metals, indispensable in the production of smartphones and modern fighter jets, are under almost complete control of China, which accounts for about 70% of the global market. A disruption in these supplies could turn into not just an economic shock, but a full-scale national security crisis. Even in the competition for consumer sympathy, the dependence of the United States on China becomes obvious. Giants like Starbucks, McDonald's, and Disney have invested billions in expanding their presence in the Chinese market, betting on the growth of the local middle class. By 2024, Starbucks had opened more coffee shops in China than in any other country, even surpassing the United States. Disney's park in Shanghai has become one of the corporation's most profitable international projects, demonstrating the enormous potential of the Chinese market. Behind the facade of Wall Street lies a bitter truth. Sympathy for China is dictated not so much by political convictions as by the instinct of self-preservation. Any aggravation in relations between the two countries, whether it be the introduction of new tariffs or diplomatic disagreements, immediately echoes with cracks in the complex system connecting American corporations to the vital Chinese economic artery. This fear is quite palpable. It is measured by the fall in stock quotes and the deterioration of financial performance. What is especially alarming is that there is no quick replacement for the Chinese production base. Vietnam, India, Mexico, all are seeking to intercept some of the production capacity leaving China, but none of these countries can match it in scale, developed infrastructure, and efficiency. The American business empire has thus found itself in a situation where the foundation of its prosperity is beyond its control and is beginning to crumble relentlessly. If this foundation collapses completely, what prospects await the notorious American dream? Some members of the Republican Party, such as Mike Lawler, are trying to mitigate the situation, claiming that tariffs were initially just a tool of pressure in negotiations, not the final blow. Even hardliners are forced to admit what leading economists and corporate leaders fear. Immediate damage has already been done, and the deferred consequences could be even more devastating. This highlighted an undeniable fact. The policy of tariff pressure has exhausted itself. What was conceived as a decisive offensive, designed to force Beijing to make concessions, turned into a blow to themselves. And now a politician, famous for his persistence, is now forced to retreat furtively, without tangible triumphs behind him to justify the risk. So what is the country's position? It seems to be mired in the middle of a trade conflict, devoid of a clear strategy, a clear plan, and even a last argument in its favor. To keep abreast of developments and not miss the moment when the next steps of states can radically change the world economy, it is necessary to follow